Hello and welcome to Karen's Creative Cards on YouTube. I am very excited to be sharing my first YouTube collaboration video with you. I am collaborating with Melissa Kerman, who was the person who discovered the Impressions of Tarnished Foil technique. Both of us have released new YouTube videos using this technique to make a holiday card, and we are featuring each other's cards on our blogs as well. Have you ever seen a card on Pinterest or Facebook and were blown away by the look of it, and you knew you had to find out how it was made and make your own? That happened the first time I saw Melissa Kerman's first Impressions of Tarnished Foil card over a year ago. I have put a link to a Pinterest board where both Melissa and I pin our cards with this technique, and if you page down, it is the one with the owl and the tree background. After being inspired by Melissa, I made many cards with her technique, which combines dry embossing with embossing folders and heated embossing with embossing powders, and then immediately sold an article on the technique to Scrap and Stamp Arts. I asked Melissa if she wanted to collaborate on the article, and she sent me a gorgeous new card with the technique. Unfortunately, Scrap and Stamp Arts went out of business before our article was published, but we did get two of those cards published at an online magazine website, and I have put links to those articles and cards in the description area. Melissa is a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and uses their products to make many gorgeous cards with her Impressions of Tarnished Foil technique. I use many colors of embossing powders and StazOn inks and heavy-duty aluminum foil, so if you watch both videos you will see how this technique can be unique and different every time you try it. I made 4 cards when I was preparing for this collaboration, and you can see how each one is so different depending on the colors, embossing folders, and embellishments you choose. On this first card I used a Doris Leaves embossing folder, green, orange, and brown StazOn inks, and red, gold, and green embossing powders for a pretty fall card background. The leaf was a salvaged mistake when I tried to run a foiled leaf through a laminator and got caught and bent. I decided I liked it bent. It looked very realistic, and layered it on the card front with a Giving Thanks from Paper Tray ink. The woods background in this card used the same colors of StazOn ink, but I tried some Stupendous aged embossing powders, and they created the black speckles that you see. Let's just call it a mixed media aged look. I added some deer from a Tim Holtz die set and Thinking of You from Tonic Studios. My last 2 cards use the same colors of StazOn inks and embossing powders for a snowy, colorful background. I finished this card with Penny Black's Snowman Joy die, a Karen Bernison Snowbank die, and Joy from Tim Holtz's Scripted Holiday Words die set. This is the card that I'm going to show you step by step how to make. Here are the supplies I used for this card. I use traditional Reynolds Wrap heavy-duty aluminum foil. I tried the regular aluminum foil and it tore when I was trying to do this technique, so I went and got some heavy-duty just for this. I'm using a Doris Snowflake embossing folder. I stamped a sentiment from Penny Black's Season's Gifts stamp set for the inside of the card. I'm using Stampin' Up's Hometown Greetings Edgelets dies and a die from Tim Holtz from that same scripted holiday word set. I will have links to all the products used in this card in the description. And I'm using some Gold Touch Miri Sparkle paper from the Paper Cut. I'm using a couple colors of StazOn inks. I'm using the Gothic Purple and the Midnight Blue. I'm using some favorite colorful embossing powders from Nuvo. This is the Purple Haze, the Classic Gold, and the Blue Odyssey. I'm using a Nuvo Clear Mark embossing pad. I really like this one. However, Versamark works just fine for this technique. And I'm using some black archival ink and a sponge. The first step in this technique is to apply some heavy-duty aluminum foil to a heavy cardstock. I'm using Michael's Recollection 110 pound weight. I have mitered most of the corners, and basically what that means is you're going to take a scissors and cut a triangle out of the corner right to the cardstock so that they lay nice and flat when they're folded. So you're going to fold the aluminum foil around the cardstock. You can see that those edges are nice and flat and crisp by having cut a little bit of that foil out of there. And then I just tape it down with some traditional tape. The next step is to take some StazOn ink. You can just use black. You can use any color you like. We're going to kind of age it a little bit or add a little bit of color to the background with these inks. Now you do want to use a StazOn type ink for that. Next, we're going to take an embossing folder. In this case I have a Doris's Snowflakes, and we're going to apply the either Versamark or in this case Nouveau Clear Mark embossing powder ink to the side usually that has the words. You want the side that is flatter, and rather than the where you can actually feel it coming up. So you want the flatter side, and you're applying the Versamark or embossing ink all over the front of that. And then we are sticking this in the embossing folder, and we're going to run it through our machine. I don't have room to have a machine here where I work, so I will do that quickly. And then you should clean your embossing folder, and most of that ink should come right off, but if it doesn't, you can use a little bit stronger cleaner than a baby wipe that I'm using right now. Now this piece of aluminum foil is now all sticky with that embossing ink, so now we're going to dump a little bit of a couple different colors of embossing powder directly on that. What I like to do is just tap a little here and a little here, and then knock it off. I like to use a folded piece of paper to put it back in the jar. And now I'm going to put a little blue. You can use as much as you like, make it as colorful or not as you like. Well, this is the gold. And then you're going to take a heat gun and you're going to melt that. It happens fairly quickly because this is on aluminum foil. can see that that embossing powder is now melted on there. To make it a little more aged looking and to take away some of the shine, I liked to use a archival ink, or StazOn would work. And I see that I should put a piece of paper down to do that. We're going to tone it down a little bit with the black ink. You can also use the black ink to kind of highlight some of the embossed areas if you wish. It's kind of a personal taste how bright you want it to be. Now I have done some of the die cutting. I die cut a piece out of white cardstock. I die cut the Stampin' Up! Edgelets out of also a heavy white cardstock, and I allowed a little snowbank to stay. I like to put some sparkly paper behind the windows in there, and the easiest way to do that is this is the negative of the piece that I die cut out, okay? And you're going to use the back of it, and you put it on a piece. This is that Mary Sparkle pretty paper from the paper cut, and put the back on a back of the sparkle paper and allow a little bit on the bottom. Sure, my pencil decides to break, but I can still get it to work. And then we're going to cut this out, and we cut just to the inside of those pencil marks. And then we're going to apply that behind those openings, and we're going to attach that down. So I like to apply just a little bit of adhesive, and then finish it with a little piece of regular tape. And now you have a sparkly windows behind both of those buildings. And we're going to attach this piece to the front of the card using good strong two-sided tape. You guys know the hardest part of using this sometimes is to get that to come up. I'm going to stop while I get that done. Okay, so I have removed that tape background off of that, and now I'm going to apply it to the front of my card. Now my card base is 11.5 by 4 1/4 folded top folding card, and when this is covering the entire thing, I like to use my Score Buddy. If you line this up in the corner, and then you take the piece that you're attaching and get that lined up in the corner, your top, which is the most important part, is going to be totally flat, and so should this side. So if you have any excess white, and I do have a little bit, I can trim it off here and here, but if I had to trim it off here, it would cut the card apart, of course. So that's a trick that I was taught years ago, and I still like to use it quite often. And I'm just trimming that little bit of excess white that shows. I also applied a piece of really strong two-sided tape to the bottom of our snowbank little village. And I'm attaching it. And then I will trim that. You can tell I got stuff on my fingers, can't you? I thought that I got them cleaned, but I do have my mono glue here. Let's see if I can take this off. And it's actually, it is mono sand eraser, which is pretty miraculous and normally takes everything off. I'll work on that a little more. But in the meantime, I'm going to attach a piece with some fine glue. A wish for peace on a beautiful, colorful background, and our card is complete. I hope you will give this fun background technique a try. If you came here from Melissa's blog or YouTube channel, welcome to Karen's Creative Cards. I hope you check out some of my videos or my blog and become a subscriber. If you started here on this collaboration, be sure to click the link in my description box and watch Melissa's video as she makes a gorgeous card with her Impressions of Tarnished Foil technique and Stampin' Up products. Melissa and I thank you for your support, sharing of our videos, and for your comments. And thanks for helping me share the joy of creativity.